Oh, good evening. If you're seeing this late, I do usually post these Friday. I apologize. I have a distinct feeling as I film this late on Thursday night that I am not going to get this out on Friday. We will see. It's fine. I know I'm not beholden to anyone or anything, but it's the weekly wrap up. So, pickups. None to speak of. Nothing to speak about acquiring. Let's run through stuff. Reading. The main thing that I've read this week, I started this. I talked about it recently when my friend Ellie gave it to me. Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue. This is like a teen book. Um, I started it on audiobook, even though I have the physical here, because I found it on Libby through the library, so I can listen to it while I'm door dashing. I haven't been able to dash much this week because we had like a bunch of snow Monday and Tuesday, which makes I can't drive. I'm not going to drive. And then yesterday, Wednesday, and today, Thursday, I had plans during dinner times, so it just wasn't possible to do that. So I'm going to have to make up for it now the next couple days dashing. But so the day on Sunday I listened to like 12 or 13% of this whole thing, and it's a kind of a chunky book. I think it's like it's almost 500 pages, in teen size, which is maybe not deceitful. But so this is a historical fiction gay story about this young aristocratic man named Monty, and he is going to go. He's sort of a disappointment to his lordly father for a various number of reasons. He likes to get drunk and fuck men, and those are not acceptable things. This is like Victorian England when this novel is set. And he and his best friend, who he is secretly in love with, have set up this plan to go spend a year sightseeing across Europe, because at the end of it, his friend will be going off to law school, and he will be joining his father in the family business, and they won't be able to be like homies anymore. And his sister is coming along with for a little bit, and he doesn't like his little sister. She's like a bookworm. But then when they're going, of course, they get assigned this chaperone who's going to make sure that there's no boozing and whoring and etc., and that they are upstanding gentlemen, and that they go to the opera and no den of iniquities or anything like that. No vice, allowed. So I haven't gotten to the point where I think that like the inciting action really starts to happen yet. Um, Basically, just like they've been introducing the characters, and then they go to Paris, and there's like a night where they are able to sneak out and go get drunk at the boxing match and kind of feel each other up in the private booth and touch dicks. But it's nice. It's a good book. Certainly not my normal thing. It's something that I'm normally. I don't really read teen, young adult stuff very often. Uh, and I'm not in love with it, but it's like it's engaging and not poorly written, and it's been good to be reading something. I do have grand plans for reading. I'm going to try and read it before I go to bed after I shoot this, so we'll see. I am, of course, reading House of Leaves, but I haven't been doing that, so I think I'm going to read something. I have a couple of very pequeño things, muy pequeño, I'm going to try and read one or two of those to just get myself back in the swing of things, I think. That's my new plan of attack. Gaming. The only gaming I've really done this week is Magic. I've done a Magic both yesterday and today. Yesterday I played webcam Magic with my friend Alex. Alex, if you're watching this, hey. He did pop in and watched last week's and commented on it. Very nice of you. I played webcam Magic with him and his sister and her partner. The two of them live on the West Coast, so we have to play with them on webcam. But that was fun. Played a couple games. Got to try out a couple of new decks. Kind of pub stomped everyone in the first game and felt bad about it, so I played my janky deck that I made for the second game and then just got my fucking ass handed to me. So it was sort of when it rains it pours, and feast or famine or whatever. But that was good. That was fun. I had a good time. It was fun to have a full 4-player pod and play that way. I had a good time doing that. And then today is Alex's birthday. So we were hanging out, and he got a box of draft boosters from Commander Legends from his sister for his birthday. And so one of the things we did tonight when we were hanging out was we just did a little 2-player draft, the two of us, and drafted. With the Commander Legends, rules are kind of different than normal draft to make a Commander draft deck. But we each drafted a deck and played a game. I won. But it was a good game and it was pretty close, and we just I got myself locked into a sort of value engine that he didn't have a answer for. There was like one thing that he really needed to remove and kill, but he couldn't do it, and I just eventually the attrition won out and I defeated him. But it was a good game. It was fun because we both got to have our decks kind of do stuff. He got a big board with tons of creatures and doing all sorts of fun stuff too, even though he lost. So that was good. So that was my gaming for the week, was doing that. I also, in preparation, because I knew we were going to be doing webcam Magic, I was testing decks out, so I was doing a lot of like Magic shadowboxing for a few days, which kind of feeds into watching. When I was doing that, I was watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which I was very, very influential show for me when I was a young person, middle school, junior high, as it was called for me. Was very obsessed with Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Very formative show for me and my sense of humor and that era of Adult Swim generally, but that show in particular, the early 2000s era of Adult Swim, that one is the big one for me. And I used to watch the DVDs quite a bit of that show. And but I hadn't seen it in a long time. But I threw it on as something I could have on in the background while I was working on Magic and playtesting decks and stuff. And I had a really good time having it on and watching it. A lot of stuff, lines I remembered, quotes and stuff I remembered 10 years since the last time I saw them, fused into my DNA. A lot of ways that the show doesn't hold up super great. A lot of R slurs in that show. Lots of gay jokes in that show. I will say that the gay jokes and somewhat the R slurs, it's always Shake and Carl doing that. And Shake and Carl are like bad people. They're stupid. It's not like, there's no question about that, They're like, they're funny. You like them because they're funny, but like Shake is a terrible person, and as is Carl, and they're the ones who are the main offenders. But not exclusively. Moonanites do it too, and anyways, that's the point being that just thing. The early 2000s, people really liked dropping those slurs back then, and You forget because it's not, you know, you're not allowed, for good reason, to do that anymore. Um, but then it's like anytime you watch any comedy from like the 90s or the 2000s, it's going to be there. It's going to be there, and you forget, and then it happens, like Scott Pilgrim's got like a R word in it, just, and I saw that movie a few months ago for the first time in a really long time, and I was like, ew, I forgot about that. It's inescapable for that period of time, which is too bad. I try not to let that, bum me out too much. But it is, something that we need to be considerate of. But so watching Aqua Teen was very fun. There are so many great, great episodes of that show. I think the last one I watched yesterday was the beginning of the 4th season, the Boost Mobile episode where they got sponsored by Boost Mobile, and the whole episode is, the concept of the episode is that Shake has been sponsored by Boost Mobile, so like the whole episode is like him doing a commercial for Boost Mobile, while the rest of them are like, shut the fuck up, like, please shut the fuck up about Boost Mobile. And this was in 2005. It was when I remember when it came out. It was when I was a sophomore in high school, and it was the era when Boost Mobile had the chirping. If you're under, I don't know, 25, you have no idea what this is probably. But basically, you could like it was like walkie-talkieing with your phone, where you could like push a button and it would make this chirp sound, the sound, and then you could just talk and it would immediately come out the other person's phone. This was in an era when like text messaging was still like cutting edge technology, and people called it like SMSing back then. Um, this was a technology that Boost Mobile thought was going to be the future of telephones, and they were wrong. It didn't last for very long. But a lot of the episode of Aqua Teen revolves around the chirping, and the phones are always like, "Where you at, dog?" And like.
But luckily for us, and for Fat Joe, he has Boost Mobile.
Where you at?
People did that in real life. I would see them in my high school doing it. I didn't have a phone until I was like 18, so I didn't have a phone in high school. But it existed. It was real. I was there. I remember. So watching Aqua Teen has been fun. I also finally started watching Euphoria. I hate how much of a mark I am for this stupid show, but it is just like I'm just such a slut for this show. It is just 1,000,000% my kind of dumb bullshit. I don't want anyone to ever mistakenly think that this show is like cinema or like, I don't know, life-changing. It's good. It's definitely good. There's just like I feel like people are starting to want to act like television is better than film, and it's not. I'm sorry. It just isn't. There are, for me, very few television shows that have ever reached the heights of movie, like my favorite movies. It's just really hard to maintain quality over time at that level. It's just not very doable, I don't think. And even the shows that I do really love that much are deeply, deeply, deeply flawed in most ways. But what Euphoria is a good time. It's just an extremely edgy and pretty cinematic looking Degrassi, The Next Generation. I mean, I don't think it's offensive to say that. It's a drama about teenagers, high schoolers, and their families, and experiencing all of the hard and real things that kids go through maybe turned up a little to 11 for dramatic effect. You've got your drugs, you've got your sex, you've got your abuse, violence, you know, it's all real. You know, Degrassi had a school shooter episode. That's how Drake wound up paralyzed. He got shot. Teen pregnancy and stuff. That was all, you know, drugs, suicide, murder. There's a murder in like the fourth-ish season of Degrassi. That's very shocking. One of the most shocking character deaths I think ever in the history of television. No spoilers, so I'm not going to say who it is. Degrassi: The Next Generation, very good show. I love that show. But Euphoria is just that, but like even more, you know, for adults. You know, it's not, there's no veneer. You know, it is like, you're going to see them do the drugs, you're going to see them have the sex, etc. It is interesting culturally too, where it's this show about Zoomer kids, but it's being made by a millennial guy, you know, a little older than me. And it's sort of like striking this balance between realism and like what the kids like kind of thing. And there are also a lot of people on the internet who want to have conversations about the ethics of showing nudity and explicit sex with minors. The characters are minors. The actresses and actors who are portraying them are adults. So it's not like illegal in the sense of like it being child pornography or something like that, but just like we're seeing naked children. Like that's the intention. Is like these are children and they are naked and we are seeing them have sex. Is that great? Is that a good... Should we be doing that? I don't know. You know, it's like... I don't think that there is a good answer to that question. It's a definite gray. There's some gray happening there. And I like the gray. I walk in the gray. But it's, you know, it's an important thing to think about. I don't think that it has no consequence. Probably. There's some consequence to doing that. The thing about Euphoria that I think I made a tweet about this. The thing about Euphoria that's really funny is that like people are always talking about how Euphoria is like not realistic, and people will be like, oh, you know, they're acting like high school. All you do is fucking do drugs, and like honestly, like I mean, it sounds like you're a fucking nerd because that's pretty much what I did when I was in high school. But the thing about Euphoria. The things about Euphoria that are not realistic are really funny to me, where it's like there's a part in the first episode where they're introducing this character and they're like, oh yeah, I met her when I had to take summer school art. Like the remedial art class in summer school, and it shows them in the summer school class and they're like whispering to each other in the back of the room, and then up in the front of the room there is a slide projector, or like a slide projector. Oh my god, I'm so old. There's a projector. And it's got Piss Christ, the very famous and controversial photograph, Piss Christ. And I was like, yeah, kids don't learn about Piss Christ in high school. They don't teach Piss Christ in high school art. Because the fucking school board would lose their mind. There would be fucking parent-teacher association protests if they tried to teach Piss Christ in school. Oh my god. You know, but it's funny because... I know it's Piss Christ. They don't draw attention to it or anything, but it's just like, that's the thing that I'm like, what's going on here? But it's funny. I like that. It reminds me of if I had written a show when I was in high school, I would have written Euphoria. I think. It's just got all the good drama and fun stuff. Also, having been working on my book, which is a lot of it is about doing drugs and having sex, and in my book the characters are adults, young adults, like in their late teens. It is very heavily based on experiences of mine from when I was in high school. I just sort of aged everybody up for the sake of convenience because I didn't want them to be in high school. But I used all of the pretty much all of the stories, almost all of the stories that I drew from, which are a lot of the stories in the book, are based at least partially on things that actually happened. Pretty much all of those are things that happened when I was in high school, including doing all the drugs. And then as far as movies goes, a little less than usual. Um, like I said, I've been kind of housebound, or you know, tonight I wasn't. I was out today, but the last 3 previous days I was stuck at home. But I did watch a movie during that time. But anyways, the first set of movie day. So on Saturday, we did game. This is gaming too, but whatever. Saturday, I had D&D. I've got this campaign that's been going since just before the pandemic started. We started running this campaign in Eberron. That is me and my friends Ellie and Ridley, who I mentioned, who I go over to their place and watch movies with. And then Ellie's brother, and another friend of ours, Blink, and Tom, Ellie's brother, runs it. He's the DM. And so we were going to meet and do D&D on Saturday. And then Ellie was like, oh, Tom's coming over in the morning, because we weren't going to play until like 3. And she was like, Tom's coming over at like 11, so if you want to come over too, we can hang out and watch a movie before, and then we can hang out and watch movies after. And so that's what we did. And so in the morning, we went and got bubble tea, and then 4 of us watched Sonic the Hedgehog, because I and Tom had not seen it, and Ellie really had, and liked it, and Ridley's kids like it a lot, and so we watched it, and it was whatever. It was fun. It was. I have like almost nothing to say about it. It was just completely whatever. Not bad, not good, just fine. Jim Carrey chews the scenery. That's fine. He's good at doing that. Ben Schwartz is funny. Sonic is likable. What's his name? Cyclops. He's okay. James Marsden, is that his name? It was a fine movie. I have no particular desire to see the new one. I probably will, though, because I'm friends with people who like it, and that's fine. I'm not like opposed to it. It's just like I would never seek it out on my own. But there is value in seeing things like that. I think there's value. You get to a point, you have to learn how to take value out of everything you see. There's something to be learned from everything you experience, good or bad. It's hard with something like Sonic the Hedgehog, though, because it just feels like nothing. It just feels like a lot of nothing. Then after D&D, we watched a couple more movies. First, we watched Little Shop of Horrors, the 80s musical version with Rick Moranis. I'm not a huge musicals person. Ellie is. Ellie likes musicals a lot. And, but Little Shop is one that I do like. I like Little Shop quite a bit. It's quite good. And I have liked it since I was a kid, and I just hadn't seen it in a really long time. And I don't even know when the last time I saw the movie was, but when I was in high school, and I was a senior in high school, we did it. That was our musical that year. We would do a musical every year. Because it was a performing arts high school. How can you not? And so I saw it when we did it. I wasn't in it, but I saw it. And Alex, my friend, who I mentioned earlier, whose birthday it is today, he played Mr. Mushnick, the shop owner. And he had a few other friends who were in it too. And but that was the last time I'd seen it. So that was, nearly 15 years ago. And it was great. It was really, I had a great time watching it. And that was fun. And then we came for me to pick, and I was like, earlier in the day we had been talking, and we started talking about like stressful movies. and like how it's fun to watch a stressful movie because it's like a controlled way to like feel an emotion, and you can like be in charge of it and you can stop it if you want. It's almost like the way that my friend really equated it was like getting a tattoo. It's like it's like painful, but it's like you're in control of the pain. It's like a regimented pain, which is like an interesting kind of cathartic experience. And I thought of Uncut Gems because I'd been thinking about and wanting to watch it because I just watched Good Time recently, and then uh, also because of the Julia Fox Uncut Gems meme going around, and then me and Ellie had been making jokes about that to each other, and then I was like, "What if we watch Uncut Gems?" And they were like, "Maybe not tonight, but why don't we watch it tomorrow?" And that's what we did. And so that night we watched a different movie that I brought, which I brought up when I talked about a different movie last week, which was Local Hero. I talked about how it reminded me of Adaptation, the Charlie Kaufman Spike Jonze movie with Nicolas Cage. Because of his quest to kind of find a quiet story, he wants to make the movie the story about flowers, about beauty and nature, and he wants it to be small and quiet where nothing much happens, and a reflection of real life, etc., etc. And that was kind of what I thought Local Hero felt like. Was also like it was going for that kind of quiet, small, low drama kind of a story. And so I brought Adaptation, and that was the movie that they picked, the two of them, to watch, because neither of them had seen it. But then I found out that Ellie had never seen anything Charlie Kaufman, ever. She has Eternal Sunshine, nothing. Never seen a single Charlie Kaufman screenplay movie. Which is like, he is such a huge inspiration and influence to me when I was a young adult. And I still love him dearly, but like especially when I was a teenager, he was like a very big influence on me. And then I also hadn't seen Adaptation in a very long time. And man, it's such a good movie. It's just like it's one of those things where like a thing that you really love when you were young, and then you don't see it or experience it for 10 years, like a really long time, and you start to doubt. You start to be like, I don't think it's as good as I thought it was when I was 13 or 14. But this was a case where then I watched it and I was like, no, it is that good. It is that smart, funny, brilliant, everything, that you want it to be. Just like a deconstruction of the story, which I'm such a fucking slut for, just like stories and the ideas of stories and how stories move us and the powers of storytelling. This movie is all about that. It's also a movie all about like making art and making movies and stuff, which I love. It's about the creative process. It's also this super metatextual story where it's trying to be one thing, and then the author kind of changes halfway through, 2/3 of the way through the movie, and then it becomes this entirely different movie that the movie has sort of stated that it didn't want to be. It becomes everything that it feared it would become, which is very fascinating. Incredible supporting cast. Nick Cage, I mean, I've made it no secret that I'm just a diehard Nick Cage fan. But you've got so many good actors in the supporting cast here. You got Maggie Gyllenhaal. You've got Brian Cox. You've got Chris Cooper, Meryl Streep. Judy Greer even shows up for a scene or two. Just great, 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 great cast in this movie. So funny too. So funny. Just so funny and so like influential to me at a time when I was like really not liking myself and really feeling like I didn't understand the world or like my place in it. Having Charlie Kaufman, the character in this movie, sort of vocalize all of the ways that I felt, the self-hatred and the snobby pretentious superiority as well, That was huge to see that on the screen for me. That was my like representation at that age. Just like always striking out with women, like not fucking knowing what you're doing, not being sure of yourself, feeling like a piece of shit, but everyone around you is an idiot. Like, yeah, that was a big mood. I love that movie. It's so good. And then, of course, the next day, as I said, we watched Uncut Gems, which I had seen once before, about a little over a year ago. And when I saw it, I really liked it a lot. But I was also like, holy shit, this movie is like no fun. This is a no fun movie. You're just having a bad time. The whole movie, you're having a bad time. Because it's stressful. And I was very engrossed the first time I watched it. I was just, I was very invested in storytelling. The world of the movie. Which is great. That's a great way to experience a movie. But when that story is very stressful and upsetting, it kind of colors your experience watching the movie. It's not, you don't have a good time. Watching it a second time, knowing what was going to happen, I was able to focus a lot more on the filmmaking, the technical stuff. This movie is incredible. It's just incredibly crafted. At the editing, the sound design, just unreal. The dialogue is so natural. The acting is so natural. And the way that everyone is constantly talking over each other, the like cacophony of the dialogue, mixed with Daniel Lopatin's incredible score. It's just like a really abrasive and overstimulating experience to watch this movie. But it's incredible. It's like... And the tension is unbelievable. They just ratchet that tension up, and it's just like... You never really come up for air. It's always kind of, it ebbs and flows, right? Like there's something bad's gonna happen, and then it gets a little better, but then something bad but it's sort of like the oscillation sort of increases in severity, where the ups get bigger and the downs could become, and it just keeps getting more intense, and the roller coaster just keeps getting bigger and bigger hills and valleys until we get to the end. It's an incredible achievement, truly. A really, really, really good movie. Just on every level. There is very little that I feel like I would criticize about Uncut Gems. Yeah, great movie. And then the only movie that I've watched since then, I watched it by myself, and it is a movie that I've seen before, and it is Slavoj Žižek's The Pervert's Guide to Ideology, which is a sort of documentary film essay. In the mid-2000s, he helped make this film / like short series for the BBC called The Pervert's Guide to Cinema. That was just him talking about different movies and scenes from different movies. Zizek, if you don't know who he is, he's a philosopher / psychoanalyst / political commentator, philosopher, Marxist, far left political figure, and one of the most prominent figures in modern philosophy. Probably the most famous living philosopher, I would say. And I think the reason why he's been able to be that successful at doing something that generally people don't care about is because he uses popular culture a lot to illustrate his points. Talks about films, talks about movies, talks about, significant historical events and things to give context to his concepts. And I think that makes him a lot easier to digest than most people in those fields. And I like him. I like Zizek a lot, and I always have. And so this film, Pervert's Guide to Ideology, is like... it's similar, and it uses a lot of film and movie clips to illustrate his points. But this one, it has a sort of big overarching theme and idea, thesis behind it, which is about the concept of ideology the idea of, ideology being, of course, ideology is like a system of beliefs, but the idea that he is more interested in is like, how does ideology function as like a container for ideas that we then convey, right? How do we convey our ideology? How do we teach ideology to people, passively or explicitly, And he uses movies a lot to explain, or give examples of how this is done, but he also uses, historical events, or he crosses over. There's he talks about Triumph of the Will, the Leni Riefenstahl documentary about Hitler. That was, the most famous of all of the Nazi propaganda films. Zizek rules, and this movie is great. It's like having a conversation with like the smartest guy that you've ever met, who also is like extremely interesting about, and just talking about really interesting, cool stuff, and just being like, wow, this guy's so fucking smart and cool. Obviously, it's not a conversation because it's just him monologuing the whole time, but that's how it feels. That's the sort of feeling it gives. And it's cool because it's like, it makes you see things in a different way. You think about stuff in ways that maybe you hadn't before. Maybe gives you an appreciation for movies or things that you hadn't had previously. He, for instance, is a huge fan of Song of Music, which I am not a fan of, but him talking about The Sound of Music makes me wish I liked The Sound of Music as much as he does. That's the kind of guy he is. And it's cool because it's also, it kind of like gets your neurons firing and starts making you kind of think and having big brain thoughts, which is a good feeling. I like having that feeling. I like it when I feel like I'm doing like mental exercise and stretching my brain muscles out. So that's sweet. I had a good time watching that. I saw it once, when it came out like 10 years ago, and I didn't remember very much about it. But I really enjoyed watching it. So that was it for watching stuff. And then for music, things have been a little quieter because, like I said, I haven't been working very much. And so I didn't even have 5 artists that I got 10 Scrabbles for this week. I just haven't been listening to a ton of music. And most of what's on here is stuff that I talked about last week. So in 4th place, we've got Sydney Gish again. 2nd place, we have Shushu. 1st place, we have Mitski again. Not with a runaway this time. Mitski had 71 Scrabbles and Shushu at 51 in 2nd place. I think the big notable thing that I want to talk about this week is Black Country New Road. So Black Country New Road had their new record, Ants From Up Here, came out at the beginning of February, about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago today, if this comes out on Friday. And so Black Country New Road are a English band. There are a fuckload of people in it. There's like 12 people in it or something. They had their first record come out just about a little over a year ago. It came out, the new one came out the day before the 1-year anniversary of the first one. First one, it got a lot of acclaim. It was one of the most liked albums of the year in the music circles that I frequent, which is internet music fandom circles. I've talked at length about this. Rate Your Music, the 4chan MU board, and things like that. And Anthony Fantano is, of course, like the big figurehead of that world. And it's not like exclusively that's what I get, where I get my information from, but that's like the most prominent, accessible, out there, easily accessible thing. I think that album was around the 10 spot on top of last year on the Rate Your Music charts. It was like 8 or something like that. And I didn't like that album very much. It was like, okay, it was fine. I listened to it maybe twice, and I was like, nah, I don't think this is for me. And I just sort of moved on with my life. And then this new one came out, and I didn't listen to it because I didn't like the first one. So I was like, why should I? But over the ensuing 2 weeks after it came out, the incredible amount of people not being able to shut the fuck up about this record. TikTok. So many TikToks I'm seeing people talking about how good this record is. Everyone on Rate Your Music not shutting the fuck up about how good it is. Everybody on Twitter just not shutting the fuck up about how good it is. Just constantly, I'm being barraged by so many people talking about how this is like, they're like, easily album of the year, instantly knew it's album of the year, album of the decade so far, you know, one of the greatest albums of all time. Like, people getting very hyperbolic about this album in a way that, like, you know, people tend to do sometimes, but not that often, and not this much. It made me take note, you know, and I was like, okay, I guess I have to listen to it. And where the first album I heard, and I thought, I don't really hear much here, I listened to this one and I went, I hear something here, you know? And it didn't immediately present itself to me. It is still blossoming and showing itself to me, I think. I haven't fallen fully, deeply, madly, truly madly deeply with this album quite yet. But I do think it is very good. It is very good. And I foresee my love of it growing. I wouldn't be surprised if this wound up as number one next week. We will see. But I've been listening to, like, the Mitski burned bright and quick, and I haven't really been listening to her for the last 4 or 5 days. And I've just been listening to Shoo Shoo and Black Country New Road. Shoo Shoo I've been listening to a lot lately, too. But that's not new. I've been listening to Shoo Shoo for a while. The Black Country New Road record is very good. And the other thing that's kind of bummer is just a couple days before the record came out, Isaac Wood, who is the band leader, primary songwriter, I believe, guitar player, and lead singer of the band, he came out with a press release saying that he was leaving the band. He was going to be taking, like, a hiatus from doing music because of his mental health. And the band had to cancel their American tour that they were about to go on because the record was about to come out. And then the band said, you know, they're going to continue without him. Which, like, there are a ton of extremely talented people in this band. You know, they're not for a lack of talent, but it's always sort of like, you know, when the main person leaves, it's hard, you know, not to think of, you know, that last Velvet Underground album, or, you know, how many bands have gotten back together without, you know, when Alice in Chains got back together, and you're like, okay, yeah, you know, Jerry Cantrell, you know, he was maybe like the main songwriter or whatever, but, you know, it's like, is it Alice in Chains without Lane Staley singing? Debatable. So that's too bad. And I don't want to make it seem like this is a slight against Isaac Wood. I for sure can, like, empathize with what I sort of gather from his letter was his experience where, you know, you're like, you feel so shitty, you know, and then you get, like, everything you ever wanted, right? You achieve your dreams, you make your art, and it is successful, and you make money from it, and people love it, and you get fans and awards and everything, and it doesn't change anything. Nothing, you don't feel better, you still feel like shit, nothing is ever enough, you know, nothing fixes it. That's a very crushing feeling, and I don't blame him for not having the will to keep doing that. And if he needs to take time and get his shit sorted so that he can be in a good place, Godspeed, and I hope he does. And here's hoping that he can do that, and then maybe someday come back and give us more. But if not, we've got what we've got, and it's quite good. So yeah, I highly recommend checking this record out. I also have just been listening to um, this. I've really been like fixated on this one Shoo Shoo song. 20,000 deaths for Island Gonzalez, 20,000 deaths for Jamie Peterson. It's the fourth track on A Promise. I don't know what it is about this song that's just been kind of like stuck in my craw lately. I even changed my Twitter display name to be some lines, the first two lines from this song. I hadn't until recently gone and looked at like the Genius lyrics for this record and like read the annotations. That was a very enlightening experience. I learned that Jamie Stewart, who wrote is the main person behind Shoo Shoo, the primary creative force behind Shoo Shoo. His father committed suicide, not super long, like in the few years prior to making A Promise, and that is a big theme on the album. Suicide is a big theme on the album generally, but I had never understood that there was that sort of dynamic as well, that there was his own struggles as well as his father's actual suicide. There is, I already really loved this record, like very, very, very deeply, in a way where it's almost like uncomfortable. But then adding in this sort of generational trauma stuff, which is a big thing in my life, and like I'm always gonna be a sucker for stuff about having a friction-filled relationship with your dad. The shoe fits, right? And then my dad dealt with that because my grandfather committed suicide when my dad was young, in his early 20s. And that was really hard for him. That was a very big trauma for my dad. And then my dad kind of, couldn't help but pass a lot of that on to me as well, I don't know. And so I just was listening to that song a lot. And then, we had this snowstorm. Originally, we were supposed to get like 8 to 14 inches of snow. And then right before it got here, it got like downgraded, and we only ended up getting like 5, which was good. I didn't want it to snow that much. But whenever it's going to snow like that, whenever there's going to be a blizzard like that, it's sort of like the closest thing we have here to like hurricane season. Like they get in the Gulf, and where like everybody has to go to the grocery store and get stuff because it's like, oh, well, we're all going to be stuck inside for 2 days or whatever. But then after, there's like this weird sort of space, this almost liminal space where it's like after everybody has sort of battened down the hatches, but before the storm actually shows up, there's just this incredible quiet outside, this like this serenity outside. And then also in the winter, it's so bright when the sun is out, because like the snow like reflects all of the sunlight, so it's like even at night it's much brighter than it is at night during the summer. Like you can see pretty much everything at night when you're out just sort of like walking around, because it's just brighter out because of the snow. And especially if there's clouds, because then they just sort of bounce off of each other, the light. But there's something about that space, that right before the storm comes space, that this song really reminds me of. It just feels like it evokes a feeling in me that is like removed from time and space, and it is in a place that is not a place but is a feeling, and it is an intangible feeling that I don't know how to explain other than that this song is what it feels like. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'll play it. Maybe it'll make sense if you hear it. Anyways, that's all I got for this week. Thanks for watching. Bye.